Okay, so now we just started the next chapter, which is sand traps. I didn't realise that Highway 17 only went up to the bridge. That's interesting. A new thing for me. But, you know, we get into sort of a dark area, zombie area, really. And take the car through. I'm trying to remember where we ditched the car at this point. Or whether we ditched the car at this point. Is this the end of the car section? Do we end up leaving it here? Ooh, physics issues. Okay. Because I know we get into sand traps and then we, you know, Laszlo, and we're jumping across the sand and the ant mines and all that gubbins. It's just safer to stay in the car at this point. Yeah, I'm gonna just clear the way. Lovely. So we're back thinking about obstructions and thinking about physics props instructions, which is quite cool. It seems to be the best way to get the player, gives the player something to do at the same time as gating them, you know, stopping them from moving forwards, and it sort of gives you a combo of slowing the player down as well as giving them something to do. So I like that. I'm going to do some more of those. There's some more physics props, and you know, this is a pretty open space now. We've got another building to investigate at this point, which is fun. Interestingly, I think the cannon actually attached to the car is not really very effective. I mean, I'm on hard mode, so fair enough. It's just not really doing a lot of damage, and obviously it's got endless ammo. I think it heats up, and you have to slow it down. But it sort of almost makes you wonder, well, what's the point of doing this? A little bit of visual storytelling. You've got a couple of Combine soldiers burning the evidence of their atrocities here. So let's take another look inside this other sort of vignette or extra bit of gameplay. We can get a sort of a peek on the inside by moving around the building, breaking various windows, which is quite nice. Anytime you can give the player sort of a bit of a glimpse as to what's going to come, players like that. We've seen that from the very beginning of Half-Life 1, looping and showing them a view into a space where they're going to be in future. And even if it's just poking through the windows, it's kind of just giving them a little bit of foreshadowing as to what's going to come later on. And that's why we can't get in, because there's a wardrobe up against the front door, so that's one mystery solved. Okay. So let's find out what this is, and if I remember correctly, it all happens in the attic on this one. And another crossbow, as we said, once again optional. All the way through, it's an optional option. Now, there's no way to get rid of these in this space, which is quite interesting. I like that, and the fact that, in fact, the only way to get rid of them is by chucking them down the chimney. Or there's one way to get rid of them. Sorry. So this is a mini game of find a way to get rid of the balls. You get them out the window. Oh no, you can put them out the window. There you go. That's satisfying, isn't it? So, full of crap. But basically, they've walked you into a trap and then dumped a bunch of roller mines onto you. But essentially, it's a mini game. It's a mini game with a challenge of, you know, figure out what to do with these annoying things. And even once you get out of the building, because you don't have a way to destroy them at the moment, and once again, if anyone knows how to destroy roller mines without chucking them into water, let me know. You've still got to deal with them once you get outside, so it's kind of a two-tiered level. Oh, and look at that. So they've put holes all the way through the building so that they can follow you down and will follow you out into the world. You just can't get rid of the damn things. So I wouldn't necessarily consider this to be the most fantastic idea, in the fact that I think they're quite annoying, really. I think a lot of people do. But at the same time, it's quite clever in the fact that you just can't get rid of the damn things. There's a certain comedy value to that. So that's that space. I'm not sure if I missed anything. I mean, it feels like there should be more there, but maybe I've missed it. Let's move on. So, looking at driving once again, this is a fairly open bit of highway with some distractions once again, as opposed to a gating thing. We've got a nice wide open beach, so if the player wants to drive around, they can. I'm assuming that we get antmines if we drive across this section. Maybe not. We can go and explore down by the beach and see what's going on. Got some pipes and some other bits. There's not a lot going on here. Just an extra section for the player to explore. This is never a bad thing. Cracking a gunfire off in the distance. Oh, okay, here we go. So, combat checkpoint. Oh, okay. So they're trying to stop us as we move through. And you know, I also don't think I've ever noticed those barriers popping up there on the floor. Just shows you how little I've noticed about this game in the past. Okay, so once again, I could carry on driving. I've chosen to stop. I've chosen to take on these guys and to teach them a lesson. But I mean, one of the big challenges to doing driving sections in your game is that you're building an awful lot of world that the player could quite easily, you know, whip by and really not appreciate and not really expensive. You're building an awful lot of world and having to spend a long time building a lot of world. However, you're not really with the chance that the player's not really paying that much attention. So the question is then, how do you build a decent driving section without having to spend a great deal of time building out maps to make it look good? So I mean, I think Coast is quite a clever idea, because you only have to build one side of the world for starters, and that side of the world they've basically masked with a cliff. So the only bit of the world they actually need to build, much like canals in the fact that, you know, a lot of it's hidden, is the roadway up until the sea, and then obviously there's the optical illusion of the sea carrying on forever, which isn't true. And so essentially it's just giving us like the canals, it's just a sort of a corridor in which to do our gameplay. And you know, for anyone who built levels, you'll know that the tricks to doing that. And I think it can be a challenge for new mappers to try and figure out, well, wow, alright, to figure out how to do that. It's very intimidating to think that you've got to build an entire world. They quite often build a flat town on a flat level with some square buildings, and can't quite figure out how to block what they call block the rest of the world. You know, essentially cover up the fact that there isn't really a world over there. I'm going to go overboard just for fun. So driving section. So one way to really deal with the driving section thing is to templating is quite good. If you can create some fairly good looking template sections of world that you can you know, replicate over and over and then tweak to look slightly different each time. So for example, you know, you could quite easily create a template bit of coastline with a cliff and a road and ooh. Wow. Anyway, so yeah, you could quite easily build a replicable bit of coastline that you can just reuse over and over, and then, you know, you can push it in and pull it back depending on with your displacements and that kind of thing, to give the illusion of it changing slightly. And obviously you can change the trees at the back and add some landmarks to make it look slightly different in each section. But it's actually, you know, once you get yourself a decent template working, it's actually not that hard to make it look relatively different each template that you add. So in my new mod, I'm adding, I've got like a kind of a coastal road on a lake path with some arches and kind of a roadway that's inset into the edge of the cliff, which gets away with an awful lot, because essentially it's just a tunnel with an open side to a lake and to the view of the sea like that. Oh. So that's another interesting thing we can do and add to our road, is we can add gaps and jumps and things like that. So last time, remember, I wasn't gated. Now I'm hitting a point where am I gated? I can drive over this, can't I? Sort of. So I guess actually it's put me through this way, and we get a dropship encounter. And the fogging here is great as well along coast and roadways to bring in stuff. You still have those to come out the fog. And as I say, this is Half-Life 2 update, so there's probably some better things happening in terms of graphical quality as well as HDR in these levels as well. So, but yeah, I think when you've got these kind of big open coastal paths and stuff like that, the fogging is really important to be able to introduce bad guys. It adds drama as well, I think, having things appear out of the fog. Kill the shotgunners first, that's the rule. You notice how when these guys are attacking, they're in squads of mixed types. We've got a couple of SMGs and a shotgun guy. There might be an AR2 guy in there as well, but the point is that a mixed squad has more abilities. Oh, it's this bit. Okay, so we've got the battery puzzle. The mixed squads have greater abilities to take on the player. So 2 SMG guys can hold back, and a shotgunner can run forwards and flush out the player while the other guys finish him off. It gives them a tactical advantage. Okay, so here's the thing with the puzzle. Okay, the battery puzzle has been done in an awful lot of mods. It turns up a great deal, and it is. Oh, I'm not sure if I'm a fan. I'm really not a fan, actually. Sorry. It's great if you want the player to explore an area, and I mean in this case, the point is in order to progress, we have to do a sort of a hide and seek thing. Fair enough. In the game, they did it once and it made sense, and everybody was, you know, quite happy with that. Ah, look, there we go. It's exactly where it should be. So logically, they put it in the car bonnet. But you know, everybody understood the battery puzzle once. We played it once in this game. Really, the goal of the puzzle, the aha moment of, oh, that's what I need to do, is kind of lost because, you know, we've already done it once. So therefore the interesting part of the puzzle is I need to go find batteries. So what's the point of going to find batteries? Is that interesting? Is that fun? One of the uses is to introduce the player to a space that they are going to need to get used to. So it's quite, if you've just got a short map and you want the player to know that space very, very well, it might be a good idea to start with the battery puzzle, to have them go off and find these things so that they can investigate the space, and then some action will start for them, which requires them to know the space very well. Outside of that, it really doesn't have a lot of interest. People put it in their maps because they've seen it in Half-Life 2 and they think that they should put it in their maps. I think when I come across a battery puzzle these days, I tend to get kind of frustrated. It just feels like it's been thrown in there for the sake of it. As I say, if then later on I discover that it was put in there for me to explore the space and to learn the area, then I kind of give a big round of applause, because I think that's a really smart way of using this. Okay, and then we reach our lighthouse, which I believe is the end of the car section of Half-Life 2, at least. And we put the car away, and that is it. And we're off into our battle. It reminds me somewhat this bit of when you park the car in Am I stuck in here now? How do I get out? That's really weird. Never come across that before.
Okay, Doc, you'll have to go on foot from here. There's a secret path along the cliffside, but no one's going anywhere until we fight off this attack.
I like my car. I'm trying to do a video about car and you're taking it away from me. Yeah, so I might do another video just sort of walking through the episode 2 driving sections, because I think that they're an evolution on from this, and I think it might be interesting to add to this to this playthrough to see how Valve evolved that playstyle into episode 2, and also to see the similarities and the things that once again that work quite well. Sorry about the bridge section, I got kind of befuddled and that became rather difficult. Hopefully some of this has been useful, and I will continue on episode 2 in a short while. Thanks.